Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add. 6 is cool. You always have the static ability to pitch a land to recast a permanent from your graveyard. Normally, Retrace is associated with instants and sorceries like one-off effects, but not permanents, so it's nice that it's given. He's also really great in that he has a mill trigger on him, and then it lets you get your lands back that you pitch to cast stuff from your graveyard. Because you care about graveyard shenanigans, I have all the stuff in here that's 2 mana that pitches 4 or more cards to your graveyard, because essentially it acts like card advantage since you can consistently have access to your graveyard. So like a 2 mana C4 cards is incredible in this list, like Mulch, Commune with the Gods, Malevolent Rumble, Blinding Way, Satyr Wayfinder is another one. Basically, you're investing 1 mana to see 2 cards. That's incredibly good.
Oh, yeah.
At that given rate. For the 1-drops, we have Groundskeeper. He's actually a really nice synergy piece. It lets you buy back the lands that you pitch to your graveyard and return to your hand. These are just dorks and things to smooth out your early to mid game. For Frog, it's incredibly annoying and very mana efficient for 1 mana to fog your opponent's damage that would be dealt to you. Carrion Ranger, this is another synergy piece. Lets you return a forest you control to your hand to untap target creature. You don't necessarily care about untapping creatures, but the forest being bounced from play to hand is what you desire. Lets you cast more stuff from your graveyard. Circle of the Land Druid, this is another one of your 2 mana investment mill 4 cards. When he dies, you get to return a land from your graveyard to your hand, so you get to do the thing even more of retracing your stuff. Seal Primordium, it's a nice recurable permanent type. You could sack it to destroy any target artifact or enchantment. Lignify, neuters someone's commander. Evolutionary Leap, it's a nice card advantage and fuels up your graveyard for your 6 targets. I'm also running the other neutering effects like Kenra's Transformation and the new guy from MH3. The one with Bestow, I think he's a 3-drop actually. Trickster Zelk. I've never personally played this, but it's just a strictly fun version of Kenra's Transformation, because in the event that the creature you're enchanting with this dies, it comes back to play under your control as a 3/3. There's like 0 downside to playing this thing, but I think it's a staple in green as a removal. It's dirt cheap. It's 10 cents, man. Right up your alley. Emerald Medallion, because these are now budget friendly, $1.50. All the medallions are now under $2, so there's almost no reason not to be playing them in your 1 to 2 color decks. Gaia's Touch, a lot of the you may play additional land effects are now getting expensive. This is the cheapest one now for $1.50. It specifically cares about forests, but you're playing 30 forests, so not a drawback. And then you have some extra reach by being able to sack it for double green. Fauna Shellman, this lets you pitch a creature to search your library for a creature, and then it's nice with 6 because you just recast it from your graveyard, the thing you pitched with Fauna Shaman. Aftermath Analysis, this lets you re-ramp your board on ETB mill 3, and then for 4 mana acts like a Splendid Reclamation, gets all your lands from your graveyard back to play. I actually have a couple of these effects. I think there's actually 4 in the deck. Life from a Loam, you should always replace your draw with the Dredge trigger on this.
What do you mean everyone?
It does 2 things that you want. It keeps your hand full of lands, so you could cast things from your graveyard, and it fuels up your graveyard for targets 4/6 to cast. This is your A-lister. It's worth every penny of $7. It's one of the most expensive cards in the deck that I didn't skimp on because of how powerful it is in here. Yavimaya Elder, I haven't played this guy in a long time. He's 5 cents. Normally when you like ramp and tutor for lands, you want it to go into play. But in this scenario, you want them in your hand for casting stuff from your graveyard. And Yavimaya Elder does that perfectly. It lets you search for 2 lands to put it in your hand, sack them for 2 to draw a card. So you could do it again with 6 later. It's like an endless loop almost. Rex Sage, deal with enchantments and artifacts. Champion of Lambhold, this is just a nice value creature. An idea I had for this deck is, I call it redeploy. because all you want to be doing is redeploying very effective threats that are scary on their own. So I tried to include as many of these kinds of creatures that could just carry your game on their backs. If someone should kill it, no big deal. You just replay it, redeploy it, let your opponents sweat over it. You have more lands in your deck than your opponents have removal combined, probably. Rampant Fragrantua. It's +10/+10 for each player who has lost the game. So the fewer players there are, the bigger this sucker gets. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may mill that many cards, put any number of land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped. That sounds like a dream come true in this deck. Super accelerating. Even if one person's dead, that is scary. Dungrove Elder scales with the number of forests you have in play. It has hexproof too, so it forces people to trade with a 3-drop creature, and no one wants to do that. Ewig, because it's a nice body to recur. Because Ewig lets you get any card, you could use this to get your instants and sorceries, you know, your non-permanent effects that your 6 can't get. Could be relevant. Menagorgia Hydra, this is one of your threats that your opponents have to deal with eventually, and it scales up really fast, really big, really quick. I like it more than Dungrove Elder because it has trample. Ramanek Excavator, you're pitching lands, so you're going to be missing land drops. Unless you have a way to get lands from your graveyard, so you're going to be playing a lot of these kind of effects. I have Titania, Nature's Force, which is also another one of those cards I didn't skimp out on. It's $9, represents a good chunk of your budget. But what it does is it lets you play force from your graveyard, and whenever a force enters the battlefield under your control, you make a 5/3 elemental. And then whenever an elemental you control dies, it mills 3. So everything about this card from top to bottom is a wet dream for this deck. It's one of those things that you just can't not include. It's worth every penny. Perennial Behemoth lets you play lands from your graveyard, and so does Conduit of Worlds. Sylvan Awakening, this is one of your endgame spells. You just windmill slam this, and hopefully you have a ton of lands in play, and you just kill people with a bunch of 2/2s. Voice the menu, draw you cards. World Shaper, this is one of your return all your lands effects, only he himself also has a mill trigger with attack. Your opponents will probably let this hit them.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Until the cows come home. They probably won't block this until they absolutely have to, which is the downside of World Shaper, because 3 damage is kind of like a drop in the bucket. Maybe when someone has a bigger thing, this might be more effective as a blocker and deterring aggro at a certain point. So either way, you'll be getting some amount of it. Splendid Wreck to get all your lands back. Case of the Locked Hothouse. This lets you play additional lands per turn. It's one of the cheaper ones out there. And then if you have 7 or more lands, you get a future side effect. I mean, you can play lands, you cast creatures and enchantment spells. There are 39 creatures, so in 12 enchantments, that'll go a pretty long distance. On top of the 33 lands, that represents 84% of your deck. Pretty useful. Dauntless Doorbark. This is one of your better threats that you could bring back from your graveyard. His power and toughness is equal to the number of forests you control. And then he has Trample, Defense of the Heart. It's a budget-esque friendly tutor. It's one of the best in the game. I would use this to get your Titania. I would get one of your other house cards like Dauntless Doorbark or Rumbleweed to close out games, stuff like that. Mending and Dominaria. This is another return all your lands from your graveyard to play. It's 13 cents. It also mills on the first 2 chapters and can put creatures back from your graveyard into your hand. And it doesn't have to be part of the cards you mill. It just has to be in your graveyard. So if you're low on lands in hand, you could circumvent that and hard cast stuff. Frostfang for card draw. This is the Vital Force. She's really easy to ult. You uptick once, you turn a land into a blocker for a whole revolution of the table, and then -6, you now cantrip off your lands. Dream come true. This too shakes the world. This makes it so your force tap for double. It's also great. Also turns your lands into bodies. What you do is you tap the land down for double green, and then you use your +1 to untap the land that's tapped to protect your stuff. And then for his -8, lands you control are indestructible. And then you get to search for any number of forests and put them into play. Tapped. Considering you're running 30 forests, that's a very scary -8 ability. Rampaging Bailoff, making significant tokens. Multani Amai's avatar kind of does multiple duties where she scales off of lands both in your graveyard and in play, and then she also for 2 mana returns 2 lands from play to your hand. Does a lot of work in terms of fueling 6 for both casting stuff from your graveyard and maintaining a scary thing for your opponents to deal with. Primal Crux. I've actually never got the opportunity to feature this. This is one of your scary redeployable threats. For Hextuple Green, his power of toughness is equal to the number of green symbols among permanents you control. It also has trample. It's a scary, evasive body, and you just bring it back over and over again for your opponents to deal with.
I live, I die, I live again!
Thorn Mammoth. This is a removal piece. Adventurer's Zendikar, a oldie and a goodie. Maybe this is a defensive heart trigger target. Lazuri's Predation. There's not a lot of board wipes in green. Apex Altasaur. This is your second board wipe. ETB, you fight something and it has an enrage trigger, so you do it over and over again until either all your opponent's stuff is dead or your Apex dies. Piece of advice when playing Apex is you save the biggest creature for last because damage will stick. So like say there is a 10 toughness creature with 10 power opposite of Apex, save that for last so you get the maximum value. You shoot things or you fight things until you do close to 10 damage so it survives to the max duration. If you get up to 9 damage to this, that is when you cash in and destroy the biggest thing possible to maximize your value. What you care about is how much damage is being dealt back. We already talked about Rumbleweed. He has cost reduction based on lands in your graveyard. That happens a lot in this deck. And then on ETB, you get an overrun effect, and he himself is an 8/8. Pretty awesome. And that's the deck. Hope you all enjoyed. Take care now. Bye.